Google's Genie 3 AI world generation represents the destruction of video game developers. Or at least, that's what investors thought as its unveiling triggered a spiraling downward trend in game company and game engine stocks. Because, suddenly, anyone could create something like this, without a single developer. My name is Paul, this is Load and Behold, and here's the uncomfortable truth. AI can replace video game developers. It's already happening. But the real question isn't, can it replace them? It's, should it replace them? And what does that mean for the future of video games if we let it? But before we dive deeper, we need to understand what's already happening in the industry. And in order to do that, we have to go all the way back in time to 2025, the year of Nintendo Switch 2 releasing, and when Silksong finally launched. And the video game industry laid off over 9,000 people. Many of those just from Microsoft. Video game development has not always been seen as a stable industry, but it's taken to new heights when companies are so strongly driven by AI greed. King, a company best known for Candy Crush, which came under Microsoft's umbrella after the Activision Blizzard acquisition, laid off staff and replaced them with the AI tools that they helped to train. So developers can, and legitimately have, been replaced by AI. But what about voice actors? Embark Studios, behind the extraction shooter mega hit Arc Raiders, used an AI-assisted text-to-speech program for some NPC voice lines. The argument here is that it saves time, but in reality, if you're designing a game where voices aren't a big focus, you could theoretically cut voice actors out altogether, right? Eurogamer's Rick Lane thought this was such a stain on the experience, he gave the game 2 out of 5 stars, despite otherwise claiming it was a fantastic game in its own right. The case here in Arc Raiders is more nuanced, but the concern is the precedent being set. Like it or not, AI voices can replace people. There are companies already out there advertising this, even being able to do so by licensing celebrity AI-generated voice talent. And the reach of AI doesn't stop at creating games, it's even trying to play them for us. Google has entered the chat again, with its DeepMind AI playing games like Goat Simulator and Valheim via text input by the player. This feels more in line with academic research, similar to Claude playing Pokemon, rather than something put into practice. But Sony says otherwise, with a patent by the PlayStation company demonstrating an AI-generated ghost player who can assist somebody stuck on a puzzle or any player who has trouble progressing in a game. Maybe Sony hasn't heard of walkthroughs. But even if the quality from AI is up for debate, it can develop, voice, and play games. But this doesn't necessarily make it a good idea. One developer, Necrosoft Games, said they would rather cut off their own arms than use AI at all. That's obviously an extreme stance, and not everyone sees AI as the enemy either. Some developers are even finding ways to use it that might actually help and not hurt the creative process. Living legend Ken Levine of BioShock fame said during an interview with Mr. Matty Plays that AI's best use case here in his workflow is sifting through datasets.
What I'm excited for it is being able to do what we do in terms of like managing our bug database, like being able to have anybody without learning fancy tool sets. We use Gemini. You can put Gemini and say, okay, tell me how many players died while they were carrying this set of weapons.
Notice, Ken Levine doesn't seem impressed with generative AI in terms of content creation, but in terms of enhancing an already existing workflow to get back to what matters most for him, making fun games for players. Maybe even most optimistically, the answer to if AI can be a net good is if it allows more, better, higher quality games from smaller studios, and if it does, maybe the general public will consider this a win. On that note though, Stellar Blade's director suggests AI does just that. Widespread use of AI will not result in people losing their jobs, because competing with major industries like the gaming sector in China and the US will require not only utilizing all available manpower, but also making everyone proficient in AI so that, quote, one person can perform the work of 100 people. This does begin to feel like a double-edged sword though. Companies are designed to make money, that's why they exist. So if one person is now 100, couldn't the other 99 be laid off? I think it depends on your perspective. And there are recent examples of AI being integrated into a game that theoretically didn't cost any humans their jobs. Where Winds Meet, an open-world RPG that made a healthy splash when it released in November of 2025, featured NPCs powered by AI chatbots. The case here feels different. This is text-only chat meant to give you a deeper interaction with random NPC side questing. Except it doesn't do that really. There are no voice lines, and the NPC bots have so little context awareness built into them that people were asking them for cooking tips, and it gave feedback about food not available during that period in Chinese history in which the game is set. So it feels like a cheap parlor trick rather than gaming transformed. I think AI, if being used by a game studio, should come with a disclaimer that no humans were unemployed in the making. And that's why I'm not really sure if we can always point the finger at game studios and shun them simply for experimenting with something as broad as AI. Which brings us to another question. Where do we draw the line? Context is everything, and nothing proves that better than what happened to Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which was ejected from the Indie Game Awards due to its use of an AI-generated placeholder asset early in production that was then later replaced by a real human artist asset. Watching the IGA representative explain this via Blue Sky felt like he was grasping at straws.
Despite agreeing that no Gen AI was used in the making of the game when it was submitted to us for consideration, unfortunately, that's not the case. That clearly goes against the regulations we have in place and disqualifies it from nomination. So with that, the IGA's nomination committee is officially retracting Debut Game and Game of the Year from Sample Interactive. Each award will now be going to the next highest ranked game in its respective category. So I am delighted to share that Debut Game goes to Sorry We're Closed. And your Game of the Year for 2025, Blueprints.
I can see the argument for banning Clair Obscur from qualifying as an indie game due to their massive funding, but banning them for an asset that the dev clarified was part of their early experimentation with the technology, and again, one they ultimately changed out anyways, I feel like that's standing on thin ice. This feels less like a hard stance on AI, and more like clearing the field for other indie contenders to rise to the top. AI directives like this one from the Indie Game Awards need to be taken in context with how the technology was used. If somehow we found the intent by the devs was to deceive or cut corners, or to pull a fast one on the judges, then a ban is absolutely understandable and acceptable. But experimenting with a new tool and then choosing not to use it, I feel like that's how people learn and grow. But some publishers are not operating in any gray area. Hooded Horse is one example, and they're building clauses into their contracts with game devs saying they won't publish a game made even in part with AI. Even they admit the inherent problem here. They will be wrong sometimes because it's almost impossible to always enforce this. The example given is if you contract out work to a freelancer, how do you vet if that freelancer used AI or not somewhere in their workflow? At some point, this becomes impossible. But just like publishers have the ability to choose to work with developers who use AI or not, consumers should have the knowledge if a game was made with AI. I view it like the ingredients list on food products. Seeing AI was used in development could be a make or break for those with an AI allergy. And this needs to be part of the conversation. AI for many signals job loss, a reduction in quality, and a crutch to lean on that ignores the human experience. Tim Sweeney of Epic Games and Unreal Engine fame disagrees, saying it doesn't matter when it comes to AI disclaimers because all games will use AI in their development soon anyways. But this is coming from someone who, in my opinion, would benefit directly from AI adoption. After all, Epic licenses the engines that could integrate these AI tools and therefore make less room for human developers, which means lowering production costs for studios using Unreal. And that bottom line thinking is part of the problem, because that greed-filled mindset is already hitting gamers more directly. Say, for example, you wanted to build a new PC right now to play the games you love. Well, you can't really unless you have money burning a hole in your pocket due to the skyrocketing prices in PC memory, because many, including Micron, have even stepped away entirely from the consumer market and have set their sights exclusively on producing memory for AI purposes only. NVIDIA too is guilty of this with its paper GPU launches, due to parts shortages and possible delays on its next consumer GPU, all in order to focus on the AI market. They were set to strike a $100 billion investment deal with OpenAI too, and while that deal has since stalled and scaled back significantly, the direction of travel is clear. Gamers Nexus sums this up really well.
So to the public, these AI CEOs are selling the cure to cancer, free public education for everybody, a reduced requirement of working because AI will do everything for you. But we think, for the politicians, what these people and companies are selling, like Larry Ellison of Oracle, Sam Altman of OpenAI, Greg Brockman, of course, as well, Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, Lisa Su of AMD, and so forth, what we think they're doing is facilitating the corruption of governments and corporations as they further collude with each other to fuck over everyone else.
The reach of AI extends far beyond gaming and gamers. AI is being deployed in ways that affect our privacy, our rights, and even matters of life and death. Clearview AI, a facial recognition software used by law enforcement, scraped billions of photos from social media like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube without anyone's knowledge or consent. Here's how it works. Police upload a photo of a suspect, and Clearview's software scans their entire database for a match, returning not just a face, but a lot of personal information along with it. The problem, though, is the accuracy. Clearview AI has led to wrongful convictions. On a different note, Ring, the camera doorbell company, showcased a Super Bowl ad just this year that was supposed to be heartwarming. A lost dog, a tearful reunion, and a neighborhood coming together to help. Instead, this triggered widespread alarm because Ring's AI-powered search party feature scans footage from cameras across entire neighborhoods to find a missing pet. Combine this with Ring's facial recognition tech could mean an obvious concern. Ring cameras could be turned into a mass surveillance machine. More shockingly, Palantir, a premier name in AI data analysis, has contracts with the US military and other intelligence agencies. Their software processes raw data like drone footage, satellite imagery, and communications. There's other information in there too, but it's all fed into an AI program used by people to track, detain, and kill others at scale. I'm not making this up, and I'm not exaggerating. In the CEO's own words, their product is used, quote, on occasion to kill people. And in a 2025 earnings call, more chillingly, the CEO went further, saying Palantir exists to, quote, scare enemies and on occasion kill them. That time, though, he said it with a smile. So when someone tells you AI is just a tool, remember what that tool is already being used for. But I want to step back from the dystopian present for a moment. Star Trek has been showing us for decades what a world with AI can look like at its optimistic best. I can't take credit for this idea. I saw one of Brandon Sanderson's talks, and he spoke about how we root for Data, an android of the next generation fame, when he strives to make art, perform in theater, or master the violin. We're on his side because of the struggle he goes through, because of the effort he puts in, and that's the point. In Sanderson's view, we don't reject Data because we're not being robbed of the creative process. Data is still putting in the work. And this brings us back to the original question. Should developers be replaced? Well, I don't think so, because we want people with lived experiences to tell us their stories, show us their characters, and craft worlds for us to explore. At present, there's a real urgency here. What happens to those just starting their journey into game development? If AI removes their chances of even starting in the industry, we may regret the ubiquity of this technology. Despite all this, there's still a part of me that's optimistic, that AI can be used for good, to even help propel game development forward. But it has to be used responsibly, enhancing what humans can do, not replacing them entirely. But with all this in mind, that's enough rambling from me. Like and subscribe if you can, and as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.